Welcome back to the Privated podcast, where we spotlight extraordinary people and remarkable talent reshaping our world. Our guest today is Shira Krishnan. I apologize for pronouncing your name. She is a former engineer turned product leader at Fivetran, the global leader in data movement. We'll unpack her jump from engineering to product management, the mindset shift that came with it, and how she now balances technical depth with business impact. Hello, Shira. How are you doing today?
Hi, Federico. Really nice to meet you and be at this podcast.
Great. I am happy to have you here, and I think today is a very interesting topic because I have a similar experience where I've been doing software engineering and I've been doing product ownership. So I understand some of the struggles. So I hope to provide my insights as well and hearing yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's start about how you started your career in engineering. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I I was born in India, born and raised in Bangalore. Growing up, I was really interested in math and science, and I was really also fortunate to be encouraged to pursue that. Um, in my undergraduate. So I graduated, and then at the end of my graduation, I was like, what should I be doing? And that was like the time when tech was booming in India, the tech actually started to boom in Bangalore. And, I did get a couple of job offers from software companies, like with really, really good initial offers in Bangalore. And I was like, sweet, this feels like, I've made it. But then I had also sort of applied to study at different places across the world, and I happened to get admits from a couple universities in Europe and also in the US. And I just figured that would be like my one shot to travel and maybe like, bring my experiences back home to India. So I picked Georgia Tech is like farthest away from home. And, like when you've just finished college, that's what you want to do is like literally like be as far away from parents as possible. And so that's kind of how I landed here. And then I finished graduate school. I did computer engineering for a couple of years, and then it was 2009. There weren't too many jobs, but I was really fortunate to start at Cisco. I'd interned there, and they gave me a return offer. And it was this really interesting program called Cisco Choice, where you like literally got to reverse interview your manager and pick the group you wanted to go join. And the reason was corporate was paying for 1 year of our salary. And so a lot of teams were actually interested in the headcount because it was free labor. And it was a really good experience to kind of experience like all of the breadth of what Cisco had to offer in terms of engineering within that like 1 month. And I picked data center because that was like the thing that was booming then. And I felt like I would be in the middle of all of the action. And, that's kind of why I chose to come to the Bay Area. And not go back to India at that point. And so
Right.
I've been here ever since. Life takes it has different designs compared to what you plan to do, right? Um so yeah, I started at Cisco as a software engineer, and as I grew in my career, like one of the things that I always like kind of felt missing as an engineer is that larger business context and the why behind some product decisions and why behind certain things that we were building. I had a fantastic onboarding within the data center group. Like we were pre-revenue, and by the time I left, we were $1 billion. And so that I got to see that like tremendous growth, and obviously like Cisco, being the large enterprise networking company, they putting their full, muscle behind that product, like really did help it succeed. But also like seeing the innovation up close was really inspiring for me. And there were like a lot of really, really smart, talented people that kind of came together to solve hard challenges. But like the business context was missing. And that's when I kind of realized that I maybe, even though I like the technical piece, I like knowing the why and figuring out the why more. And that's kind of, that kind of stayed with me. And then I, at some point, decided that I wanted to make that transition and the shift. And I started a e-commerce platform company, like a marketplace company called Event Yoda, which is a marketplace for team building events. And we did that for about a few years. And during that journey, the thing that really again resonated with me was like the why and the product market fit, talking to customers, understanding their problem and translating those problems into practical solutions that we can actually go build. I think like that, along with technical depth is what I think really inspired me to make that transition into product management. And so then became a product manager at Scava, which is an e-commerce platform company that got acquired by Infosys. And then after 4 years there, I joined Fivetran as PM for pricing and buying. Again, the overlap is the buying piece. And then now I do a lot of pricing infrastructure for consumption-based pricing, which is deeply technical, but also very, very customer facing. So it just having that engineering background has always helped me go into the technical depth, interact with engineers at their level, but again, like be able to surface back up and talk to customers and be that person that can translate and speak both worlds.
Interesting. Interesting. Wow, what a journey.
Thank you.
In Argentina, so I'm from Argentina, moved to Mexico 17 years ago, and I've been working with different companies in the US forever. So in Argentina, when the kids want to leave the house or more, they have more freedom to do that. Usually, the parents are more like open to that. In Mexico, what I found is that they are more conservative in that sense. So it's like if you're going to leave the house, you have to leave the house married, right? That's kind of the theme there, right? I'm wondering how is in general in India, how is the culture related to that?
The thing is, anything I say about India, I'll be wrong because there are different Indias, right? Like it's such a diverse place. In my family, it was totally fine. Like if it was for education, they kind of encouraged it. In fact, I passed the PhD prelims at Georgia Tech, and I got invited to pursue my PhD at Georgia Tech, and I declined because I was like, I don't feel like I can last that long and be that focused for that long on a single problem. And my dad was at that time was really upset about that. He was like, this is such a great opportunity. You should totally pursue it. And then I had to write him a 2-page essay on why I should not be pursuing PhD and I should go take that job at Cisco. And so it's a little bit like my situation's a little bit different. I don't know if this is all of India, but a lot of my friends were in the similar boats. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, I met my wife in Colima. It's a small town, and her family is from Ciudad Guzman, which is another city that it's 45 minutes away. And she kind of did, it was a shorter distance, but still, she moved to Colima to study, and that's where we met, right? And we started dating. So yeah, it was a very unique situation because usually the families in Mexico don't allow their kids to go out in the world, right? They're more holding that, right? So it's interesting to learn about your experience in that regard.
Yeah, yeah. I guess like the other thing about like India, in my engineering college, half of the class was women, which is very different from my experience here at Georgia Tech. So, when I came here, a lot of them would be like, "Oh, you're an engineer, but you're like a woman." I would be like, yeah, it didn't seem like that big a deal, like when I was in India, but like it apparently is a big deal here. So yeah, there's that.
When I was studying in Argentina engineering, it was 90% men, right? Uh, so I can understand that difference.
Yeah.
So what sparked your interest in product management?
I think I distinctly remember like we were celebrating wins around, success of our first release and how like successful it was. And I really wanted to understand like why would somebody buy our product versus somebody else, like the competitive analysis and kind of like understanding like the needs of the customer. And I was working on a very core feature within Cisco. And, like my PM at that time was like, yeah, like this is, every RFP I fill, like this is a default feature that they require. And I was like, that's great, but is it a needle mover or is it just something that they check off? Is it a box that they check off or is it something that's actually making a difference in their life? And it took me a little bit to dig into that and get that perspective. And I felt like I could have gotten that more and more quickly if I was a PM. And so I think that's where it clicked and I kind of started talking to more people and I was like, oh, I talked to my PM at that time and talked to other PMs and I was like, what is it that you guys do? Because it was not a very well-known profession at that time, being a product manager, as it is today. It was not like, it was not the sexiest thing to do back then. And so
Right.
at least in my experience. And so it took me a little bit to figure out what it is PMs do actually.
Right. When I train software engineers, I tell them about that they need to understand what is the value for the user, what the why are they building what they're building, right? Because when you're in a team and there are a lot of moving parts, it's easy to lose the vision, right? And ask a lot of questions to the product owners of why, and sometimes they don't know the answer because they haven't done a good job on them understanding the user, right? So I usually explain that the mission of the software engineer is to build software features that has impact on the users, right? That are solving the user's needs, and the product owner is the facilitator for that. But it's our responsibility as software engineers to be able to understand that so we can build software that makes sense, right? So when we are building automated tests, instead of saying, oh, it works based on my expectations, we can say, well, it works based on the user's expectation, right? Or where the user is going to get value. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, that's why we're building software, right? So someone can use it and feel like it solved their real problem. So yeah.
Right. Right. I always give the example of the ATM. If you go to the ATM and you want to take money, cash out, right? So, but there's so many steps to get that working, right? So it's as if, one of those steps are wrong, then it's not a transaction breaks, right? So it is important to follow that procedure correctly, right? So, but understanding that at the end of the day, the user wants to take cash out, right? That's most of the times you go to an ATM, right? Or to deposit, but most of the time you want cash, right? Anyway, use that example because that's a good example of a transactional use, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. At the end of the day, like if a user does not get that money when they go into the ATM, they're going to be so upset and it's going to be such a bad user experience that there's a bank takes a reputation hit, the user is upset. There's downstream impact. Maybe they may withdraw the money from the bank and go bank at a different
Right.
bank. So there's just so much that could happen because of that one negative experience that I think like just getting those like aha moments right is so important.
Right. And when you see that, because you can physically see the money coming in and out, right? Or
Yeah.
coming out of the machine and you grabbing it, right? So I use that example because I can say, okay, what are the most important things you need to test out, because if a new release breaks oh, sorry, I cannot give you cash, that's important, right? So we have to focus on that to make sure that that works, right? So anyway, it's that understanding of the user. I think that's the key. What your engineer peers, how they reacted when you decided to move into product?
It was at a different company, so I guess it was not the same peers, but
Right.
I do have really, really smart engineering peers here at Fivetran. They're based in Serbia and they're very, very like product focused. And Fivetran's also a very technical company. And so I feel like I've been really blessed with amazing engineering partners that really understand not only the technical depth, like you said, ask the right questions. And, my peer engineering manager director, they all kind of help problem solve together. And so that has also been just a fun experience to being on the other side of it, to be able to collaborate with smart people on the engineering team and be problem solve together has been just fantastic.
Right. Right. Interesting. So this is your first role as a PM, right? In this company.
I want to say my third role.
Oh,
First was the startup. Second,
right.
I did everything. So the startup, and then the e-commerce platform company was my second, and then this is my
That's right.
third. So I've had varied experiences, but I've got to say, like hands down, my current engineering team is like one of the smartest people I've worked with as a product manager.
How do you balance technical depth with business priorities?
That's an interesting question, and it really depends on prioritization, I would say. It all starts at like the business priority, right? Like, is the business priority increasing reliability, for instance? Then you go fix your tech debts to make the system robust and more reliable. But if reliability is at the number you want it to be at, let's say it's at 99.9%, and like, yeah, there are like some straggler ones, but like, you could push it off by another quarter and it's not gonna like be really bad. Then and there's like another need for the business, maybe moving revenue or reducing, like increasing expansion or whatever, like other new feature that's going to be to customers' benefit, then you prioritize that. Versus if something that you built really is leading to suboptimal customer benefit, for instance, you build ATM and like money doesn't come out, then you fix that technical debt ASAP, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
so yeah, I really think it depends on what the priority is. At the end of the day, we're all solving user problems no matter what, whether it's technical debt or it's, a brand new feature or it's like enhancing an existing feature. It's about like what is the priority and what needs to be the focus.
Right. Right. Yeah, I understand. What do you think are the things that are changing on the product management role?
Yeah, I'm sure like every podcast guest of yours is going to talk about AI. Like that's just a thing. That's the reality of our world right now, and it's such an exciting time to be alive, to be honest. I feel lucky that I've been part of two such, right? Like I grew up in Bangalore during early 2000s when the tech boom was actually happening and I could actually see that like skyline changing. Bangalore was a retirement city. Like it was like always in the 70s, people would go there to actually retire. And from that to it becoming like the tech city in India, like that transition was quite remarkable and happened over like 2, 3 years basically. And the AI boom's like even shorter time frame. And so AI is here. Some of it may be hype, but there is so much goodness that it is going to change our work lives and our life forever, I think.
Yes, yes, I agree. I mean, I didn't want to lead the question, but yes, there's a lot of AI is changing a lot the role of PM, and it's also changing the role of the software engineer as well, right?
Yep, yep.
Building product is changing.
Yeah, yeah. And there's going to be growing pains. Like there's going to be like AI hallucination, there's going to be like incorrect answers, vibe coding, breaking stuff, like all of that, yeah, but it doesn't take away from like that tectonic shift that we're seeing. Like my day to day, like there's not a day that I don't use ChatGPT. Like in
Right,
my for my work. Like when I'm writing requirements, I'm like using that so I don't have like a blank page problem. I'm using that to like validate my, like to gut check things or to if I don't have analytics, resources to run like quick analysis for things or to give me like gut check my like querying like for my analytics stuff or to understand something that I don't really understand. It's replaced my search basically. So yeah, I think like there's a lot of value in leveraging all of the things that AI, the capabilities of AI, and there's just a lot more. And I'm only scratching the surface. I mean, there's just a lot more things that we could be doing. And then also for software engineering, like GitHub Copilot, for instance, it's just such a tremendous like value add for engineering.
yes, yes. I did a hackathon last weekend. Was one of the sponsors, and they gave us a month free of their Copilot version, whatever it's called, and and it's amazing how much high level task you can ask, and it can do that automatically. And then it's frustrating because it makes mistakes in the most silly things that is like you figured it all this stuff out, but then you make this silly mistake, and when you want to fix it, it kind of like it itself, it's yeah, it's very interesting to see. So instead of fighting with it, you have to learn how to, guide it in the right direction, provide more specific prompts of what you want, right? Try to provide more smaller tasks, right? Yeah, but it took me a while to figure that out, right? Yeah. And the same on, doing analysis, getting, information, summarizing information. It's becoming better and better. And I've seen this year much better responses than before.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's just like exponential
Right.
leaps. Also, I do want to say, like, the next generation or like the generation after, they're just going to be AI native. And it's going to be interesting to see like their design patterns. It's going to be so different from ours that, yeah.
Yes, yes. But I have a conflicting opinion about that, right? Because bless you. uh, because so we as human, we learn by doing. So when you are vibe coding, right? It's great because you can build something fast, right? But the first problem is that you haven't done it, so you don't understand how it actually works, right? It's done, but you don't understand how to build it yourself. So it is it is less efficient, but it's in the doing that we learn. So we have this tool that is interesting, but it could also be a limitation for our learning. Then on the other hand, the LLMs, they can guesstimate how to build something, right? They can guess based on the average of the code that they've seen, but they don't understand how to abstract or how to design an architecture, right? Or how to design a component that is going to work for the future needs. So vibe coding has that limit right now where, for prototyping is great, but if you want to implement it in production on a bigger application, then you start having these issues of limited context or not being able to understand the whys, right? Which, we come back to the the importance of the product manager's role, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it's interesting like that your perspective there. I actually have a more optimistic perspective. Yes, things are not great now, right? Like we're at ground zero. And
Right.
anytime a shift is happening, it's not great. Like we're the guinea pigs of the AI era in some sense. But I was a judge at a hackathon this past weekend, and guess who won the award? A 10-year-old came to the
Oh,
hackathon,
really?
wipe coded his idea of like enabling learning at learner space for schools. And he was saying it's a challenge that he faces in his day to day. Like he's great at some subjects and he wants to move ahead, and some others he's not. And he wants AI to help him like leapfrog and help him in other areas that he's not good at, to like at least baseline and catch up. So he
Right.
actually built a prototype like in 6 hours, a 10-year-old doing that, like, and he's not a software engineer. He doesn't know how intricate details work. And he's able to like think of a problem, come up with a solution, and demonstrate at least a prototype. And that to me is very refreshing to see. Like all of the other participants at least were 18 years and up. They were all like working professionals, and his idea and his lab quality of demo and his problem statement and the why, and all the way through the demo, prioritization features, all of that like was so rock solid. You could not have told that it's a 10-year-old that built it. And so like that gives me hope that we're just at ground zero, and this is going to become so much better as it evolves over the next few years, that we're just going to be like, you know, not be able to do our jobs without it.
Right. Right. Interesting that a 10-year-old will win the hackathon. In my hackathon, uh, a project manager won the hackathon. And it was mostly software engineers, right? So I find that fascinating as well. It supports what you're saying, that, and I agree with you that the LLMs, the AI allows, uh, with vibe coding, gives a access to building stuff to a lot more people, right? that, before HTML and JavaScript in the 90s, right, you would need to compile everything. Before that, you would, um, and my mom told me this, so I haven't experienced that, but she would write the instruction on a piece of paper and then type it into a machine that would basically put ink on different spots, and that big piece of paper with the instructions, she will need to schedule a time to get the computer time to get the input, and then the output will be another piece of paper, a pile of papers, right? And then she would analyze and debug if what she did was correct or wrong, right? So a bug cycle will take weeks, right? So
Yeah.
every cycle will take 1 week or two until you get access to the computer. It was one computer for the whole university, right? So the access to that type of building software has been, that barrier has gone lower and lower, and now more people can do that, right? So yeah, I agree with you that an AI could help on that sense, right? Um, the my concern, or what I was discussing before, is that the 10-year-old will only be able to build code with AI, right? And then they can it can get to a point where if the AI doesn't understand the abstractions, right, then that project can get stuck at that point, because it will be hard for the 10-year-old to give the specific instructions to move it forward, right? I've seen it myself when I vibe code and I build stuff and I realize, okay, this is not working, but because I spend time fighting with JavaScript or whatever, I kind of understand what's going on, right? So I I needed to have that knowledge in order to guide the ChatGPT better, right? Otherwise, it will be like shooting blind, right? Like you don't know what the target is because you don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I agree. I think that's like I said, I mean, like where are the guinea pigs? There's like definitely a lot of problems, but I also think there's a lot of opportunity. Like think about like the startups you could build that bridges this gap, right? Between
right.
somebody that understands JavaScript and this 10-year-old. There could be a translation layer that somebody builds and solves for that actually makes this translation work, that fights with LLMs, that does like all of these things that we're like struggling with. That's a great business to be in my mind.
Yes, I agree. I mean, the amount of opportunities that are now available, it's the greenfield opportunities that were not available before, thanks to AI, are huge, right? Um, I was we were talking. I was talking with a friend that it's similar to the level of opportunities or more than we had back in 1999, 2000s, where there were so many greenfield opportunities that you could do now because the technology catch up to a point where you could do that, right? Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm interested to see how the LLMs are going to evolve, because they're evolving very quickly, where these type of problems that we're discussing now are not going to be an issue in the future.
Yeah. And look, I don't want to paper over issues, right? There's ethics issues. There's like, are samples, like, is the modeling done correctly on the right data set? Like the data set itself may be like not representative of everybody else, in the world. Does it interpret results fairly? Like there's ethical issues. There's just like whole set of problems that are yet to be figured out. Yes, but I have faith in humanity. We'll figure it out, together. So,
Yes, yes, I agree. Isaac Asimov wrote about some of these, where he wrote about this bionic man that never dies,
yeah.
basically replaces part of his body until he lives forever. And spoiler alert, if you haven't read the book, but what happens is that he went on generations and generations, right? Learning about new stuff that was coming up. And then it got to a point where people around him would learn about something new. They didn't describe exactly what it was, but and I remember this for many years. I read this book, so probably I'm butchering the story. But anyways, so everybody would learn about the new stuff, and he was unable to catch up. He realizes that this is a point where I can no longer keep up with the new world, right? And that's the moment where he decided to retire. Let's call it retire, right? But But anyway, it's interesting because in that sense, every new kid, right, that's born comes with a fresh mind, right? Imagine if we had all we grow up as a kid and we have all the memories, right, of all the society or whatever, then the society is doomed, right? The humanity is doomed. But with every kid, there is hope, right? Because now you have a blank slate, right? You can change culture, you can change everything with new generations, right? And they can adapt, as you said, to the new tools.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I have a 15-month-old, and it's just amazing. All of the stuff he's learning. He already knows how to like take pictures and take videos of himself. And I'm like, we don't allow any screen time. We have not taught him anything, but he just knows how to use our phones. So like it's just amazing how like fresh, clean slate, like you said, kids can actually absorb new things because they are not prejudiced by
Right.
previous knowledge and information. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I do think like every day, like I learned something new from him.
Right, right. Congratulations on the new baby. What happened with me, I have a 10-year-old. So what happened with me is that you know, we get used to so many things, right? That we get to a point where less and less things surprise us, right? Or wow us, right?
Hmm.
So, but with the babies, is everything's new, right? So that's that energy,
Yeah.
is contagious, right? So it's it's a great way because you relive all
Yep.
your childhood through your kids, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yep.
yeah. One thing I recommend you do is there is a YouTube channel. Well, she has videos as well, but it's called Signing Time, and it teaches the baby sign language
Oh,
because
nice.
they can communicate with signs before they can talk.
Yes.
So now our son kind of forgets all the signs, right? But
Hmm.
but he was able to say more milk,
Yeah.
and we learned the songs and we'll sing the song with him. So anyway, we enjoy it as well because it's a good way to communicate with the baby 10 years ago, right? But anyway, I suggest you see that because it's a good way to learn that, to have a basic communication with the baby, or at least it worked for me as a dad,
Yeah, no,
right, where
that's
it's
such a good
harder
tip.
for me to
Thank
talk.
you. Yes. No, give me all the tips. There's, like, there's so much to learn. It takes a village to raise a child, I think. So I will take all the tips.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. I mean, usually the moms can understand better the kids. It's instantly, and for the dads, it's more. It takes us a little bit while. So as a dad, this helped me to
Yeah.
communicate a little bit better with my son. So yeah, I'm happy to give you more tips offline. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's next on your journey? What are you excited uh, to learn next?
I think, I mean, we touched on this a little bit. Like, I'm really excited for the world we live in. I'm really excited for this tectonic shift. Like, but I still think fundamentally, um, still excited to be a PM because at the end of the day, AI is a tool, but what we're doing is solving user needs and business
Right.
problems, and that's not going to change necessarily. How we do it and how we solve it will change, but fundamentally deciding, is a problem worth solving? Like, is it a priority? Like, how do you think about how to solve it within your ecosystem? How do you get buy-in? How do you communicate with your stakeholders? That's not changing. And I
Right.
think like these skills as a PM, like you can always like carry forward to this AI world, I think.
Yes, yes, I agree. The software engineers live these industry revolutions much faster than any other role, right? Because the technology changes faster. But the one of the benefits of product owners and product managers is that the people's problems. I mean, maybe the tools we use to manage would change, but the people's problem remain pretty much the same because we're pretty much the same animals, right? So one last question before we wrap it up. I want to be respectful of your time. What advice would you give to young engineers that are considering jumping to the PM role and follow that career?
Yeah, I think start with the why behind everything you're building. Like, be curious. I think curiosity is like the number one trait. Like, be really curious, ask good questions, even at your work. Try to understand like why behind what you're building. So, one, you're building really good product. Two, you're developing really good product instincts. And three, if you ask a lot of questions, they will make you a product manager. So I would say like start with the questions, be curious, not just about your job, but about like other people's jobs within your company because you never know. Like be curious about like your coworker in finance and be curious about your coworker in design and like in sales. And you will uncover like other ancillary problems that you could then go back to your leadership and say, hey, like this is what I want to solve and this is why I want to be a PM and let me come help you solve that and this is my path. So you can actually lay down what you're going to solve, what the need is, like why they should hire you, and you have all of the you have all of the engineering context, and then just getting this layer on top, like for business context, will actually help you make that switch within your org. And even if you don't make that switch within your org, it actually develops your product instinct and you can go do that somewhere else.
Right, right. Great, great. Maybe I can ask you one last question and then
Yes.
this is the last one, I promise. So, what advice would you give uh, to young engineers or young people that are uh, considering to move all the way, from another country? Could be India, could be, I moved from Argentina. So what advice would you give them?
I think just knowing, like expanding your knowledge regardless, right? Like whether you move from, I know people that have moved from other countries to India. Like I had a friend that moved from Nigeria to India to study in my college. And so when you do that, like when you actually like are exposed to different culture, and I know like friends that go to like Europe for summer, like, internships and things like that. So when you do that, like you not only pick up language skills, you pick up like different culture, you get a more deeper appreciation for us as humanity. Where our cultures may be different, but at the end of the day, we're all the same. We're social. Like we care about our families. We really care about our ecosystem. We have like the same, emotions, right? So like we have the same basic needs. We want to feel comfort. We want to feel that safety and security. So I think like you just get a deeper appreciation for like humanity in general, and you just become more empathetic. So I highly encourage like being exposed to as many different cultures as possible. So like you get that well-rounded empathy. So yeah, like you don't actually have to move like countries, but traveling in general is great also.
So, Shira, thank you very much for joining us today. And I'm looking forward to continue the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such a fun chat.
Great. I'm glad that you had fun. Yeah. Thank you.